right. Yes. Okay, so it's recording. Just making sure I got everything ready, and we'll just get started. Cool. Yeah, so hi, I'm Greg.
Perfect.
Yeah. So I'm Greg.
Hi, good to meet you.
I'm from mxdwn music section, and I'm here with the singer, songwriter, amazing vocalist, Eivør. Yeah. Hey, how are you doing?
Hey, I'm good, thank you. How are
Yeah.
you?
I'm good. I'm good. Yeah. Really glad to be talking to you today. So yeah,
Likewise.
first off, how are you doing, and where are you currently in the world?
I'm doing great. Right now I'm in Denmark, where I spend kind of half of my time, and I'm usually in the Faroe Islands as well. But right now, yeah, these weeks I've been spending them in Copenhagen.
Yeah. Okay, cool. And I mean, being from the Faroe Islands, well, how do you feel like that, like your geographical origins, how do you feel like that incorporates itself into your music?
Uh, wow, yeah. Well, I guess that where you come from, you know, is always a part of your somehow your inner landscape.
Mhm.
And creatively for me that has been a huge inspiration, um, for me in many ways, on many levels, in my songwriting and also in my productions and sounds and stuff. I draw a lot of inspiration from my roots. So yeah.
Uh, Cool. I love that. I love that. So yeah, I want to get started with like, talking about your soundtrack work that you've been doing recently. So I know you've been working on like The Last Kingdom and God of War and everything. What was the process of working on these soundtracks been like, and how do you immerse yourself in these visual worlds through the music?
Well, it was quite new to me when I first started working on with The Last Kingdom. Um, and now it's about 8 years ago that the first episodes were recorded. And um, I remember that John contacted me, the um, composer of the series, and he was looking for a female vocal. And he flew me over to London, and we tried out some things. And from there, it kind of escalated further, and we ended up co-writing the whole score for the whole series. And that was kind of just one thing led to another, and it became like a huge part of my creative life all of a sudden, to be creating film music.
Yeah.
And it's been really inspiring in so many ways, because you kind of, usually for me, I'm a performer, and I release my own records. And this was like a different space for me to move in a way, because when you create music for film
Mhm.
and a picture, you kind of have a different kind of frame to work in. And at the same time, there's a huge freedom. And in The Last Kingdom, for example, I have thought of my voice much more as an instrument,
Mm.
part of the instrumentation. And often it's wordless vocals. It's more about the emotions and the of the scenes. So I mean, it's been really fun and really inspiring. And the same with God of War, kind of similar. Video games are quite similar to films
Yeah.
these days. So it's very much about um, getting the emotions out of the scenes.
Cool.
And there's a huge spectrum, like a huge contrast. There's, the very emotional scenes, and then there are the more aggressive battles.
Mm.
So yeah.
I love that. Yeah. And then when working on these soundtracks, do you usually get like what's like the initial process of making the music? Is it like what helps you more? Is it like having the concept of a story and the characters, or is it having like clear visual representation of the world that you're trying to create?
um I mean, it's all about, I think, strengthening that what's already there.
Hmm.
So if I get a scene from John, he would send me the scene that we're working on, and maybe some thoughts behind it, like what's happening in the scene, and what do we want to bring out emotionally for this scene. And then I just work from there and try to capture that as much as I can
Mm.
without you never want the music to shadow over the scene, so you always want the music to carry it, to
Yeah.
make it even stronger. I
Mm.
think that's the job for when you work with film and
Mhm.
TV.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I like that. Yeah. And when working on a soundtrack for, like a historical piece, how important is it to be culturally accurate? And like what does that research process look like for you when you're trying to make something, especially with music?
Yeah, I mean, both these things are very like Nordic, and based
Mhm.
on the Nordic sagas. And
Mhm.
um for me, that kind of, it felt natural to draw inspiration from my roots in Faroese folk music, which is very much based on all the Old Norse sagas.
Yeah.
So I mean, yeah, I think it's important to kind of um, have some kind of red thread, in that sense, that it's historically correct, both lyric wise, and things that you use or get inspired by from those things. um so yeah, but because I have very strong roots in Nordic music, uh, it felt very natural to me to draw inspiration from that.
That's cool. That's cool. Yeah. And so in the Last Kingdom, the Destiny is all soundtrack. There's a lot of like contrasting of different sounds, like clashing of like classical instruments with electronic noises and like very loud,
Mm.
grand vocal passages with soft, gentle singing. Like, how does this
Mm.
clashing of different sonic elements help define the tone of the show?
Oh, that's an interesting question. um I know that when John started working on the music for the soundtrack, he wanted to create some contrast
Mm.
by, instead of using like, I don't know, old Nordic instruments, which you don't really know what they are. He wanted to use analog synths, which are is a modern instrument, but it's also very organic and alive. And when you create something with an analog synth, it's almost impossible sometimes to recreate it, because it's very much almost like the human voice. It's in the moment, kind of, where you capture some kind of mood with the synth. And that the electronic world combined with the vocals that I've been doing, such as throat singing and quite um, primal sounding vocals, somehow have created, I think, the sound world,
Mhm.
which is filled with contrast, like you say.
Yeah.
It's and I think it's able to kind of capture some kind of very primal sounding thing, combined with something more modern sounding.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. And I know you talk about using your voice as like an instrument. Like, were there any like specific like vocalization techniques that you had to learn on these projects? And were there any challenges that you faced when like trying to find how your voice fits into these different worlds?
Well, yeah, it's funny you asked that, because I mean, I've always been really curious with the voice, and I've always been
Yeah.
experimenting a lot vocally.
Mm.
Always been curious about what can the human voice do.
Yeah.
and and this series really gave me the freedom to play around with all those uh, crazy sides of myself, if I can put it that way. And I think I've used a lot of the techniques that I've been working with during my career, but I also definitely discovered new sounds in my voice for the series, because you get all these scenes and I would just play around with them very freely. And there, for example, a lot of battle scenes where I'm using a more almost like growling voice, which I haven't done much of before. So I think just naturally I have discovered a few new things through this. Definitely.
That's really cool. That's really cool. And I know like one of the vocalization techniques that you have used in the past is called throat singing. Can you explain like the origins of that and how you first incorporated that into your music?
Yeah, that started for me like many years ago, maybe 15 years ago. I was it kind of happened quite naturally on a live show once. It's not something I had like been thinking about so much, but it was more like a thing that I all of a sudden discovered in a live show where I was performing with my drum and I was improvising, and some of these more guttural sounds just started to pour out of me.
Yeah.
And after that, I started experimenting a little bit more with it. And I think that what I have landed on today is probably a mix of throat singing from all around the world. It's inspired by old traditional Nordic way of singing, which is very raw in a way. But also I have been very much into beatboxing also earlier in my life.
Yeah.
And gotten a lot of ideas from other maybe Inuit throat singers and people from Greenland as well. So I think it's just kind of my own interpretation of how throat singing could sound like.
Yeah. No, that's cool.
In a Nordic way.
No, that's cool. Yeah. And I mean, obviously like you have all these different, vocal stylings that you've tried out before. What kind of music were you listening to when you were younger, and like how did like, the progression of all the different music you listened to like get to where you are today?
Yeah, I mean, I've been listening to so many different kinds of music, like everything from classical to rock and jazz, and so I think that there are many different things that have inspired me, and I've always loved folk music. The music that comes from the people, kind of.
Yeah.
And hearing folk music from different cultures is always quite special, I think, because it kind of reflects so many things. It reflects the landscape and the people so much. That's what I love about it. I've been listening a lot to a Sami singer called Marie Boine. She inspired me a lot when I was a teenager. And she has that primal way of singing. And everything from that to Maria Callas, to Robert Plant, to Björk, to Kate Bush, I just love an expressive singer.
I love
And
that.
it can be, doesn't matter what genre, as long as it's powerful and expressive.
I love that. I love that. Yeah. I mean, obviously, like when listening to this music, like, you're listening to it very willingly. One thing I'm interested in is like hearing about how it feels for you to have your voice embedded in like, a massive video game franchise like God of War, like where players are kind of reluctantly hearing your voice sing rather than like kind of willingly. So it's kind of like heard in passing. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really crazy to think about sometimes,
Yeah.
that people hear my voice when they play that video game. It's like
Yeah.
I'm not a gamer myself, so I I don't really know how they experience it, but it's really cool.
That's cool. Yeah. Yeah. And well, one thing I'm also interested in is obviously, you have these amazing, like very like beautiful live shows that you put on and performing these songs live. Do you think like the songs, especially from these different like soundtracks and stuff, do you think um they tell a different story when they're on stage rather than, paired with the visual that they are usually tied to?
Oh, that yeah, definitely. I think that's it's a very interesting question because in general, I've always felt this with music that you record an album and it has a certain meaning to you each song, but when you then take it to the audience live, it
Yeah.
all of a sudden it becomes something else. It becomes their story too somehow, and it kind of opens up a little bit.
Mm.
And I definitely feel that with also the soundtrack music. When I can perform it live in front of an audience, it's all of a sudden has room for much more interpretation and emotions,
Mm.
all depending on the audience and the mood in the room. So yeah, that's always an interesting thing with music, with live music, I think.
Yeah. What's like the most like interesting reactions you've seen like throughout the crowd, like watching, just watching the audience like when you're singing your songs?
Well, I'm always astonished that audience all around the world sing along to my songs
Yeah.
because they don't know Faroese,
Mm.
but I still see their mouth moving in
Yeah.
Faroese, and that always fascinates me. I'm like, wow, you're singing along, and it's not even a language you speak. Um, so no, it's always nice to get reactions from audience. It's my favorite thing to share music live with people, and yeah, I'm just really grateful for the audience that come to my shows.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, even if there is like some kind of, language barrier, there's still like I feel like music is very universal where it doesn't even matter what the language is. You kind of just
Yeah,
you just feel it. And I love that. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, definitely. Yeah, I love that too. Like that, you don't always have to understand the lyric in order for it to touch your feelings.
Yeah.
Sometimes maybe it's even better because it creates a more open space for interpretation.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah. Well, I have one more question for you and to let you go. But thinking about the future, what other worlds do you envision your voice encompassing? Like whether it's through soundtracks or your own solo work, like what kind of soundscapes do you wish you can create with your voice?
I'm sorry, I lost you for a second. Can you
Oh,
give me that question again?
oh yeah, yeah. No worries, no worries. Okay, so thinking about the future and what other worlds do you envision your voice encompassing? Whether it's your soundtracks or your solo work, what kind of soundscapes do you want to create with your voice?
Mm. Well, I hope that I will now that The Last Kingdom is like over, they made the final movie.
Yeah.
I still hope that I will be doing more music for film in the
Mhm.
future, definitely. And on a personal level, what I want to do with my voice. I mean, right now I'm working on a new album, which will be out next year. Um, and I'm experimenting a lot with vocals and different layers of vocals. And I guess I'm doing that even more now for this album than I've done on my previous ones. And that's probably because I've been working so much on soundtracks and stuff lately. um, but I take it one step at a time, and I don't know what I'll be doing in 10 years, but right now I'm just trying to create something beautiful and something that can awaken some feelings in people's hearts, whether it's something dramatic and rough, or whether it's something soft. Doesn't matter so much. I like to work with the contrasts and to create just some interesting spaces with my voice musically. So yeah, I don't know if I answered your
No, you're
question.
perfect. You're perfect. Yeah, I think, just making like emotionally dynamic music, I feel like that's what you're very good at. And
Yeah,
yeah, definitely very excited to see what you have coming out next. Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you
Well,
so
I mean,
much.
yeah, that's all I have for you today. I really appreciate you talking with us today. And yeah, I hope you have an amazing rest of your day and take it easy. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, of
You
course.
too. It's
All
a
right,
pleasure.
have a good one. Cool. Cool.
You too. You too.
Bye.
Take care.